Okay, all you.
Okay. Uh, okay. Today I'll be presenting on a study that was completed in 2008 at University of Nebraska in the Department of Psychology. And even though that's sort of an old paper to present on, I was reading this paper in preparation for my organization, and I found one thing that was interesting, and I wanted to sort of open it up for discussion. The title of the paper is Impact of Journaling on Student Self-Efficacy and Locus of Control. And before we get into the actual study that was completed, I wanted to cover some of the concepts that were dealt with in the study. The first concept is self-efficacy. Self-efficacy is a psychological measure that the journal describes as the individual's personal belief about their ability to initiate, persist in, and be successful in behavior. So this sort of refers to the quality of that self-belief and the self-assurance of their own abilities. And this has been proven to be a predictor of success in academic performance, athletic endeavors, as well as smoking cessations and more. The second concept that was dealt with in the study is locus of control. And locus of control is described as the individual's perceptions about the underlying main causes of events in their lives. And this refers to as the individual's tendency to either blame the consequences on themselves or the factors outside themselves. So it can be internal or external. So if a person has an internal locus of control, they would have the tendency to blame themselves for the successes and failures they experience. Whereas if they have an external locus of control, they're more likely to find other causes outside themselves. And so this study basically focused on self-efficacy and locus of control as the dependent factors of this study, because the studies previous to this study did look at the effects of journaling on college students, but they primarily focused on the academic improvements and not the interpersonal growth. So this study wanted to sort of introduce those elements of self-growth and interpersonal characteristics, because they can be indicators for an improvement in academic performance. So they wanted to sort of make the data set more comprehensive. Yeah. And so another concept that's dealt with in the study is cognitive behavioral therapy. And there are multiple types of cognitive behavioral therapy, but basically the underlying principle or concept is to attempt to change the individual's thinking and or behavioral patterns by helping them recognize the distortions in thinking to become capable at solving problems on their own. So the intention behind this therapy is to make the person self-sustainable in solving their problems. And they included CBT into journaling because the studies that I mentioned that preluded this study like never isolated the element of journaling. They were always integrated with CBT. So this study wanted to look at sort of the differences in groups with just journaling and journaling with CBT. And so this study had 41 psychology students enrolled for the same course in the university, and they divided these 41 students up into two groups. The first group was CBT journaling group, consisted of 25 students, and the second group was non-CBT journaling group. And both groups received the same lecture style, same curriculum of teaching, and they both completed weekly journal assignments for the course. But the first group, the CBT journaling group, their journal assignments applied cognitive behavioral strategy to their personal experiences, as well as a 10-minute discussion session per week. So the non-CBT journaling group, they also had journal assignments, but the topics weren't restricted to the CBT related topics. And so throughout the semester, while the students completed these journal assignments, data was collected 3 times in the beginning, in the middle, and the end of the semester. And the scientists collected basically 5 data sets for the study. The first 2 being related to the interpersonal aspect of growth, and the last 3 being more related to the academic performance. And the self-efficacy questionnaire is, it consists of 23 questions that assesses the individual's self-efficacy regarding their personal belief about their own abilities. And the locus of control scale looks at the 10-item questionnaire that assesses the individual's belief that their destiny is controlled by themselves or factors outside themselves. And while they did this, they hypothesized that the CBT group would experience a greater improvement at all data points. So that includes both the interpersonal aspect as well as the academic performance. However, the results indicated that the significant improvement in self-efficacy occurred in both CBT and non-CBT groups, regardless of what they journal about. But I thought it was interesting that this improvement only occurred from the beginning of the semester to the middle of the semester, and not really in the from the middle of the semester to the end of the semester. And as for the other data sets that were collected, there wasn't really a significant impact of journaling. So yeah, I thought it was particularly interesting because the improvement only occurred from that specific time period. And so this study basically established that journaling, when it was an isolated factor, it was able to result in a significant improvement in self-efficacy. But there was no difference from the middle of the semester to the end of the semester. And some of the study constraints that the paper mentioned was that it didn't really have a pure control group that didn't journal, as well as the research being a classroom-based research, the results may have been clouded by other instructional variables. And so this study basically calls for instructors to implement journaling into the curriculum regardless of their disciplines, because it shows that academic journaling may be one means of simultaneously fostering academic and psychological growth of students. So yeah, I thought it was particularly interesting that the growth only happened in that specific time period. So I wanted to open that up for discussion.
Yeah, so with the journaling groups, right? You said that it was more effective at the beginning to the middle of the semester. So do you think that a course goes on a full semester? Do you think that'd be more effective for just to have the class journal from the beginning to the middle and then kind of drop it, or do you think it would be effective more long term and throughout the whole semester?
The first time when I sort of saw that the change only happened at the beginning of the semester, the first thing that came across my mind was that maybe there's a limit to the improvement that can happen. So it would just be like a limiting improvement, but not incremental. Like it's not exponential, you know? So like,
Mhm.
I don't know how the effect of self-efficacy would be resulted if it was dropped in the middle, but when it was prolonged, I think that that improvement sort of persisted in the individuals, um, not really added on. It was a cumulative.
Gotcha. Um, I do have concern about the sample size, and I think you said it was between two instructors. So do you think that this might be the instructor's behavior affecting the students? Maybe the instructor's more of a um, supportive instructor. Maybe they provide extra encouragement outside of just the journaling. So do you think that that might have an influence in the study outcome as well?
Um, it's I don't think it's the instructor's variability because there wasn't a change. There wasn't any differences that were observed between the groups. It was more of a difference per time period rather than um, the topics they journal about. So I don't, I don't think it's the journal. I mean, the instructor's behavior.
Gotcha.
Mm,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I don't have any more questions about the study. Seems really interesting to talk about. No matter what discipline, that you should always do some self-reflection, know what you're learning about, and how it could affect you in the future, positively or negatively, or just talking about the stuff they're learning about. So great study.
Mhm,
I enjoyed listening about it. Um,
mhm.
cool. Yeah, I'll go ahead and end the recording.